What's up, everybody? It's Travis here from Travis.media. I'm in a hotel room today. It's really dark, so I brought together some lights. Hopefully this works. But this week, we're going to be building an all-new app in React called YouTube Stats. I'm not very creative with names, so I just called it YouTube Stats. Basically, it's a simple React app that makes an API call out to YouTube and returns stats for a video. Now, my initial concept for this app was when you create YouTube videos, you like to look around and see how other similar videos are doing. And when you do that, you get kind of curious as to what tags they're using. So their video is doing really good, your video is doing okay, they must have used some good tags. Of course, there's other factors too, but you can't get the tags with the UI. You can only get them via the APIs. In this tutorial, we're gonna pull more than just the tags. We're gonna pull a few more metrics and display them in two boxes. What you can do is build this app and then add more boxes with more data to suit your own needs. We're going to learn how to make API calls with Axios. We're going to work with React, and it's going to be a blast. So be sure you stay tuned. Be sure you hit that subscribe button, as this year we're going to be building lots of fun apps together. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing we want to do here is we want to create a new React app. So I do that simply by npx create React app, and I'm just going to call it YouTube app. Now, create React app, you probably already know, but it's a starter package. It sets up an entire environment for your React workflow. It used to be installed globally. They used to recommend, hey, just install it globally and then use it like that. But this is no longer recommended. It's now recommended to install it per project. I can link to some documentation on that if you want to read more. But it just takes a couple of seconds and we'll have a React project up. So once that's done, we can navigate to that folder. So ls will tell me, hey, I got to get into the YouTube app folder. And from there, we just go npm start to start a project. And we should see the default React screen, just the React logo spinning around. If you see that, you're doing well. Good. Now, we don't need all of these files. So this create React app installs a lot of stuff. We don't need it all. So we're going to remove a few files here. So if we go to public, we want to remove everything but index.html. Yeah, I know the robots text is important and the manifest may be important, but not really for what we're doing. So let's remove everything but the, well, let's go in the public folder and remove everything but the index.html. So move to trash. And let's go to the source folder. Here we're going to remove everything but, so everything but app.js, index.css, and index.js. Everything else can go. And since we remove these files, we have to remove the references. That's why we have this failed to compile error. So let's go to the app.js. We need to remove the reference to the app.css since we deleted it. We need to remove the import logo. And also you'll see here that we're still referencing the logo. And actually, I want to go ahead and just take this whole div and remove it. And for now, just put an H1 that says hello world and save it. Still failed to compile, so let's look elsewhere. Let's go to index.js and we can remove this service worker and the reference to it. And I think that's it. Hit save. Let's see what happens. And my save is not working. All right, compiled successfully. Now we should have a page that says hello world. And this is their initial starting point. So here's kind of the rough image of the components we're going to have. So we're going to have a header component. So we're going to have a header component, a body component. This whole thing is a body component. Form component, and some results here. So a results component. So let's go ahead and build this header component. So in my source folder, what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to create a components folder. And we're going to start with the header component. So the first step, let's build the components, then we'll build the functionality. So header.js. Actually, let's back up for a minute. So we don't want to have to write CSS in this project so we can stay focused. So I'm going to import Tailwind. So Tailwind CSS is kind of like a bootstrap. And there's a number of ways you can install it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the CDN link. So if I go to Google here, type in Tailwind CSS, Cloudflare, you'll get this CDN.js link. So go to this page. Then you want to find the one ending in Tailwind CSS and just copy that. Then we'll go to our index.html file, and just somewhere in here, let's just add it right after this link. Let's add a link with an href and put our reference there. And then of course, rel equals style sheet. Close that up, and now we have Tailwind in our project. Great. So back to what we were doing. So for a header component, we don't really have to manage state, so we'll just create a functional component. Functional components are really easy. First, let's import React from React. And functional component, you just write function, and we're going to call it header. And we're going to return what? We're going to return a header tag with an h1 that says YouTube stats. Yeah, I didn't have any unique name for this app. It's just going to be called YouTube stats. And since we're using Tailwind, let's put some classes in there. So class name equals, let's do MX Auto to center it. Let's do a padding of 8 and a background of red 700. For our H1, we want some big text. So let's put text white to make it white, and then text 4XL. Let's try that out. And then down here at the bottom, we need to export default header. Save it, and finally come back to your app.js, and instead of this hello world, let's return header. And make sure we add it up here, so import header from components/header. Now if we save this, we should now have our header component. So save it. Up here, there it is, YouTube stats. So that looks a little bit like our little layout. We have YouTube stats here. Next, let's go ahead and get this body component set up. So come over to components, new file, body.js, import React, and component this time from React. And since we need to manage state with this, we're going to use a class component. So for a class component, you simply put class, and we're going to call this body, capital B, Travis, extends component. And this is going to render and return. And what do we want to return? Well, JSX, of course, but specifically, we're going to return a div. How about that? That's it. Because remember, this body component just kind of serves as a container, and it's also going to be the parent to the children component within the body. So instead of the app.js, we're going to use this body as the parent. So I'm just going to add some classes. So class name equals the width of full, then container, MX Auto, and a margin Y of 12. Down here, we're going to export default body. And then in our app.js, let's add this. So import body from components body. And right under that, we're going to put body. All right, now we have a squiggly line here. JSX expressions must have one parent element. We have two parents here. How do we fix that? Well, we put it inside of a div. So we're going to make the div the parent, and these components inside of the div. So let's save that. And if we check out our page now, we're not going to notice any difference because the body component doesn't really do anything. But if you install the React Chrome extension, you can take a look and see what components are on your page. So if you open your dev tools and go to components, you see we have an app component, And the children of that is the header and the body. So we're looking good. 2 more components to go. So next, let's create our form. So let's look at our mock-up again. So our form is just going to be this line where we enter text and hit enter. It's also going to say video stats, but basically this form is where we're going to put our data into and make the API call. So as before, let's go to components, new file, we're going to call it form.js, import React component from React. And here we're going to do a class component again because we want to manage state. So class form extends component. We're going to do a render, if I can spell. And we're going to return what? What are we going to return? So I could go and write a form just from scratch, but who wants to do that when we're using Tailwind CSS? So let's go out and find out if Tailwind has a form we can use. Tailwind CSS, let's go to the website. And we should be able to look at component examples. So up here we have components. And the examples, we do have some forms. Let's see if we can find something similar. It's too much. And this is perfect. So let's take this form and copy it. And here I want to put a div to put my form in. And I also want to put an H3 that says video stats. And then we can paste in that form. Now, what are these squiggly lines? Well, this input has to have this slash before the tag. So there's no closing input tag. We need to put a slash there. That should fix the squiggly lines. I also want to remove the buttons. And that looks good. So let's save that. Come down here. Export default form. And save it. And come over to app. Now remember, our body is here. We want the body to be the parent. So I'm actually going to go to the body. And I'm going to put my component here. And save it. Now, form is not defined. That's because we didn't add it up here. So import form from... And we're not in app.js, we're in the body.js. So we don't really have to mention the components folder. So we can just say form. So import form from form, save it. Compiled successfully. Let's look and see what that looks like. There it is. There's our form. Now it's over to the side. Video stats is small. We can fix that with Tailwind. So let's come over here and to our form component. One thing I do want to do is I don't want this border teal because it doesn't match our theme. I'm going to make it a border red, and it's going to be that red 700. For our H3, let's put a class name. And we're going to make this text bigger with text 4XL, text center, and a margin Y of 16. Let's save that and see what it looks like. So this centered, the form didn't. So let's center the form with MX Auto. And I'm going to do a max width XL. And save that. And I'm going to save it. See what it looks like. Great. Video stats. Here's our form. It says Jane Doe. Let's fix that and make it say enter the video ID. Great. We have our form component. We can look down here at our components. We have an app with 2 children, header and body. And body has a child, a form. And now we want to create the results component. So let's go to components, choose new file, and results.js, import React, components from React. And yeah, I know there's a shortcut. There's some kind of extension that'll speed this up, but I don't work in React a whole lot, so I don't have it. Or maybe I do have it, and I just don't know. But anyway, let's put that in. We're going to do a class component class results extends component. We're going to render and return what? Like I say every time, return what? Well, we want two, I guess, cards. So we're going to have some results on the left and some results on the right. So let's go back to Tailwind CSS. Well, let's look here. See how there's like a box right here and a box right here? We're going to have those two boxes. So let's go to Tailwind and choose Flexbox Grids. See if we can find an example we can copy and paste from. And we can use this. So there's 3 boxes here. We just want to switch this to 2. So I'm just going to highlight that whole thing. Come back here and let's put a div around it again. And let's also do another div with an ID of tags. So we're going to need that. And now I'm just going to paste it in. Fix the formatting. And let's go up here to the top one and put some classes in. So class name. Remember, class is a reserved keyword in React. You have to use class name. So we're going to do a width of full. We're going to put container, MX auto, and a margin all over of 24. And we don't want 3 columns. We only want 2. So let's delete one of these and change our 1/3 to 1/2. Click Save and see what that looks like. Oh, we got to export it and add it to our body, of course. So export default results, save, and come over to our body, which is the parent, remember, and we're just going to add it right here. Results, and save, and of course, we have to add it up here. Import results from results, save. Component is not defined in results.js. React component, not components. You were probably yelling at me that whole time. Compiled successfully, great. And here are our 2 boxes. So we have our kind of skeleton of our app. We have our header. We have our form where we're going to type in and make our API call, and then we have 2 results blocks where we're going to display the results of the API call. Now let's add some functionality. All right, so let's get started on functionality. So let's go to the form.js. Let's work on this a little bit. So when we submit a form, we want to send whatever the user types in the value field. So I'm going to put value and just put test for now. And we want to capture what the user is typing. So we want to do like an onChange something. So whenever they type something, we wanted to update this value to whatever they typed. If they add another letter, we wanted to add the next letter, and so forth. So let's create first let's create a state. So let's do state equals, and we want to track the term. So the term is going to be what the user types. Now next we want to create some kind of function for this onChange. We're going to call it handle change. We're going to capture the event. Now the event gives us all the data we need when a user does something in the browser window. And this is going to be a function. All right, so our term currently is just going to be blank. So we want to update this term to whatever the user types. So to do that, we want to do this set state. And term is going to be, and if you know anything about JavaScript events, it's just going to be event.target.value. And if you're like, how did you get that? I have a video on this. The event actually gives you a lot of detail into what the user is doing in the browser, but event target value will get us the text that they're entering in the form. So save that. So down here where it says onChange, we want to put this dot, and we want to call that function, handle change. So on any change, it's going to call this function, it's going to update the term. Now the term is what we want to put in the value. So value equals, you guessed it, this dot state dot term. And save it. Let's make sure it compiles successfully. Great. So let's try this out. Let's go back to the browser. Let's open up the developer console, go to elements, target the form. So here's that value here. Let's type something to see if it updates. So A, yep, value equals A, B, C, D. Every time I type something, the value updates. So when the user comes in here and types in some kind of ID, it's going to be in the value. So now that that's captured in the value, we want to create an on submit. So when someone submits this form, we want something to happen. Of course, we want it to call out to the YouTube API. So let's jump back to the form.js, come up here to the form tag and put on submit equals something. So we need a function for this as well. So let's call this handle submit, and we're going to capture the event also. And here, now when we submit this form, we don't want it to submit like it normally does. So when you submit a form, it usually refreshes the page. With this, we don't want it to do that. We don't want it to do its default behavior. We want to instead call out to an API. So let's stop the normal form function by putting event.prevent default. And that's all I'm going to do now. We want to do more than this, but right now I'm just going to leave it at that because we need to talk about the API now and get our API connection set up. So if we save this, we get an error. And that error is because we didn't put anything in on submit. And so we need to put this dot, the function we just created, handle submit, and then save it. It should compile successfully. Great. So let's leave that where it's at this point. And let's look at the YouTube API. So there's one thing you need to do before we actually look at the API, and that's create an API key. Now, I would show you how to do that, but it's really simple, and I'm going to put a link below. It's actually just a couple of steps. You can set it up in like 2 minutes. You just go to the Google API site and you create a YouTube API. Again, I'll put a link below. Once you've done that and you've obtained your API key, then come back to this video and we'll continue on. All right, so go to Google and type in YouTube API, go to their website, and go to reference. And here you're going to see all kind of options you can get over here. So here's overview, and then there's just a ton of options. What we're interested in is the videos. So if I go to videos and click on like list, it's going to give us first some common use cases. So it'll tell you how to get list by video ID, how to get multiple video IDs, most popular videos, things like that. But if you keep scrolling, it's going to give you your URL. So this is the URL we're going to use to make the API call to get the API data. If you keep scrolling, it gives you parameters. Now, first it says required parameters. So there are some parameters that are required when we make this call. The first one is part. So there's a part parameter. If you read up on this, it says the snippet property contains the channel ID, title, description, tags, hint, hint. That's what we're mainly looking for is tags. So we have this part parameter that has this snippet property that's going to output all of this data. So that's required. Let's keep scrolling. There's no more required fields, but there is something called filters, and it says specify exactly one of the following parameters. So we have to specify one of these three. And what we're going to do is specify the ID, because the user is going to be putting the video ID in the form. So we need to do this ID, we need to do this part. So if you have Postman, go ahead and open that up and we'll just try it out. I'm going to grab this URL. If you don't have Postman, download it. You should be using it. And so I'm going to put my URL here. We're going to do just a GET request and go to params. We need to put in a couple parameters. First, put in key. So the key is going to be key, and the value is going to be your API key. So put that in first. Second, remember a required parameter was part, and that value was snippet. Remember we looked at that a minute ago? And finally, ID. So let's find a video on YouTube we can get stats for, or get tags for. So I'm going to type in YouTube, and let's check out how to start and grow YouTube in 2020. So up here in the URL, V equals the video ID. So grab that. Go back to Postman, put that as the value for your ID. So you have your API key, you have the parameter part, and you're looking to get the snippet, which is going to output you all kind of info. and the ID, which is the video ID. So if I hit send, I should get back a lot of data, and I don't. Something is going wrong. And I don't know what's going on. Maybe that video's something up with that video. Let's try a different video just to make sure it's not that. So here's how to start a YouTube channel with your phone. Uh-oh. Let's grab this ID up here. Let's try this one now. So I'm going to change the value to this and do a call. Yeah. So something's up with that video. I don't know what the deal is, but we got all the data with this video. So with this, we get a whole bunch of info, and mainly what we want is going to be in this items array. So this is an array with, I think, one item, maybe more than one. Yeah, just one item. And so this items array, and then inside of that's going to be the snippet object. This is also what we're looking for. So here we have the channel ID, the title, the description. We have thumbnails. So in your app, you can display the thumbnail for whatever you're searching for. That's kind of neat. And mainly, we want the tags here. So here's an array of tags, and this is what we want to output on our page. Now, if you go back to all of the YouTube options, there's just tons of stuff you can pull in. So if anybody wants to develop this app further, you can put a whole bunch of results boxes and just fill it up with tons of data. It would be lots of fun. But for now, we're going to focus on tags. So that works. In our app, we need to put these parameters, key, part, and ID, for our API call. All right, so we're going to do that with Axios. Axios is a very simple package that lets us do API requests. So if I go to Google and just type in Axios, I can find some documentation. And normally I'm going to look for GitHub. Yeah, here's GitHub, Axios promise-based HTTP client. Let's click on that. And here that tells us how to install it, which is npm install Axios. So I'm going to kill my server and just do npm install Axios. So make sure you install that on your project. And then if you keep going down, you'll see how to perform a GET request. Here's some examples. How to perform a POST request, multiple concurrent requests, and a whole bunch of other stuff. What we're interested in is creating an instance. I'm going to tell you why in a minute instead of just doing a simple GET request. But we're going to do this creating an instance. So let me copy this. And we are not going to put this in our JS files. We're going to put it out somewhere else just to keep things clean. So I'm going to create a new folder in source called, let's call it supports. And in that folder, I'm going to create a file called youtube.js. This is where we're going to set up our Axios instance. So the first thing I want to do, of course, is import Axios from Axios. Then I want to do a const of key, and that's going to equal my API key. I'll put that in a minute. And then I'm going to paste in my information. Now, we don't really want a constant of this. We want more of this, export default. So we want to export this instance. So we want to export this. I'm going to remove the equals. So we have export default, and this is going to be our instance, our Axios instance. So base URL, you know what the base URL is. That's going to be this. So let me copy that and put that here. Next, we have timeout and headers. Instead of doing that, I'm actually going to put params. And we're going to put our parameters here. And you know what that's going to be also? It's going to be first part, remember, part of snippet. This is the same thing we put in Postman. Part of snippet. And we want to do key of, and up here we have the constant of key. So this is going to send our API key, and it's going to send our parameter that we want. So go ahead and enter your API key up here. So I'm going to enter my API key there. Go ahead and save that. And great, so we're exporting this instance. So now if we go to body.js, we should be able to use this instance to make our API call. So up here, let's do import YouTube from, and I think we have to back out a folder. Yeah, so supports/YouTube. So now we're importing that. And right here below component, let's do state equals, and I don't know what we want there yet, but right under that is where we're going to set up our GET request with Axios. So if I come back to the documentation, I can find, let's see how to do a GET, and that's up here. So there's a couple of examples. I want this async example. So I'm going to grab this async GET example. And I'm actually going to tweak it a little bit, so I'm just going to paste it here for reference. But what I want to do is create a function called handleSubmit equals, and I want to call the async like below. And we want the parameter to be the term, okay? So so when somebody submits their form, it's going to send that term to this function. So we want that term to be passed in as a parameter, and this is going to be an arrow function. And then we're going to kind of copy this. So we're going to say const response equals await. And remember, we have an instance of Axios called YouTube. So YouTube.get. And inside of that, we want to put videos. Now, where did that come from? Well, if we go back to YouTube.js, this is a base URL. So we really want it to stop at the v3. We don't want to add in the videos. So just remove this /videos, and we're going to put it, and save that, we're going to put it over here in body, /videos. Just a little bit cleaner. Keep our base URL so we can query different things besides videos if we need. All right, so here's another thing we need to think about. So in YouTube.js, we have the part parameter and we have the API key. Well, we need the video ID, right? And we can't add this over here because the ID is getting passed in this function in body. The ID is going to be the term. So if we go back to the documentation, we see that we can actually, like right here, we can actually put a comma and pass in some parameters such as ID. So let's do that. And what this does is and that's why I created an instance, because I want to add parameters in another location. I create an instance, I got these parameters that we're going to be using, and then where we're actually going to have a dynamic term, we want to add a parameter there. So here we can say comma, and go down a line and type in params equals, and here I'm going to put ID is, of course, term. This is going to be our term. And then right after that, we want to do this dot set state. And here, I just want to get everything. So I'm going to put everything, and of course, it'll be response dot data dot what? Well, if we look back over at Postman, it's going to be, of course, items. So this is just going to output everything so we can see how we want to parse this. So let me save that and get rid of this async function that I used just as an example. All right, so how is the form going to call this function? Well, let's send this down as a prop to the form. So here, where it says form, let's say handle form submit equals this dot, and it's going to be handle submit. We're going to allow the form to access this function. So let's save that and go back to the form. Now, and since we called that handle form submit, now in the form, we want to add, after we prevent the form from submitting normally, we want to call that function. So we do this dot props dot handle form submit. And here we want the term, so of course this dot state dot term is what we're going to be passing into that function. So let me save that. All right, so let's give this a go. Things never work on the first try, but let's give it a go and see what happens. Here we go, the React app. Let's refresh just in case something's up, and our server's not running. Let's open this up, npm start. Hopefully we don't get any errors. All right, failed to compile. All right, so params is not defined in body.js. Oh yeah, I totally messed this up. Ew. Let's remove this for a minute and redo this. I messed that up. So here we have to put some brackets. And then we can do params. And we're supposed to put a colon, not an equals, Travis. And ID is term. That should fix it. Save. All right, compiled successfully. So let's give this a shot. Now, of course, this isn't going to output on our page, but we still should be able to see it in this components tab in the developer tools. So let's find an ID. Let's do the same ID here. Save that. Let's go to our app, enter that in, and hit return. Oops. All right, so we get a type error. This props handle form submit is not a function. That is in form.js. So let's take a look there in the form.js. And we have handle submit. This props handle form submit. We're passing in our term. I don't see any issues there. Let's check out our body where we're sending that as props. And down here we have, yep, HANDLE. So we had that misspelled. Let's save that. Compile successfully. Now there's one other thing that I want to mention, and I noticed this when I was putting the app concept together. When you have YouTube.js, so you have these parameters, and they're combining with this parameter here, the ID. For some reason, the latest version of Axios has problems with combining those. There's some issue out there. I don't think it's resolved yet. You can go to GitHub and read all about it. There's a couple of complaints out there. But anyway, everybody says just go back a version and everything will be fine. So we need to go to our package.json, find Axios, and go back a version. So we're at 0.19.2. Let's go back to 18 and let's do 1 because 18.2 doesn't exist. So let's save that. Now we need to kill our server and do an npm install just to update everything. And we should be good. At that point, we should be able to make our API call. So down here, added one package, updated one package. That was probably our package. So good. Now let's go ahead and try our API call. So, we got to run our server, npm start. All right, so let's pop in that video ID again. Open up our developer tools and components. Go to, where's it going to be? Body. Let's go to body. And then let's hit enter. All right, so right here where it says state, we're going to find everything. Remember, we defined everything just to get all of the data. So right here, this set state everything, and we're going to get the response of that API call. So if we open that up, we see, hey, we have 1 in our array. So there's an array, there's 1 item, and we have the whole snippet value here. So we have channel title, we have description, we have channel ID, all of that stuff. But down here where it says tags, we have an array of tags. So we're getting the API response. Now we just need to parse this on the page. And so let's go ahead and come up here to where a state is in the body.js and just put tags. And we're just going to put a bracket for the array. And we want to get the video title. What else do we want? Let's put a channel title. And how about views? I don't know if we'll use all this. Let's just put them anyway. So down here in this set state, this is where we're going to kind of parse everything. So let's start out with tags. Make sure I put my comma. And we're going to put response.data.items. And if we look at our call again, well, we don't have the call. Let's open up Postman. If we look at this again, we see that the items gives us an array. And we only have 1 item in the array. So we're going to want to put a 0 here to indicate the first in the array, the first item. And then from there, we want to choose snippet and tags. So let's add that in. .snippet .tags and save it. Now we should be able to do something like tags equals this.state.tags. Let's also do title. I think we can get the title here. So this.state.title. And of course we need to add this here. Where is the title at? So the title's in the same spot. So we're going to put title and snippet.title. And let's just leave it at that for now. We may add some new things, but right now let's send tags and title to the results component. So let's make that API call again. All right, and so in body, we have all of our info here. We have everything, but we also see we're getting tags now, which is the list of tags, and we're getting the title. Views we haven't gotten yet. We'll get those in a minute. But for now, let's go ahead and set up our results component to display this information. So we're getting everything, we're getting tags, and we're getting title. And that is being sent to results. If you look at the props, we have that available in our results component. So great. So let's go to our results component, and let's do this. How about we do this? Instead of doing both components here, let's create those two components. So let's create a folder called metrics. Inside of there, let's put tags.js and something simple like info.js. We could probably name it better than that, but I'm going to leave it for now. So we got info.js and tags.js. And these should be in caps, tags and info. All right, great. So back in results.js, I'm going to remove this first one, and I'm going to put in my tags component. And basically, these are the same, so I've already copied this. Let's just go ahead and put in my info component. Save it. And in info, I need to create the info components. So first, we're going to import React from React, like we do always. We're going to create a function component here called info, and it's going to return this HTML I just copied. Move that over, and we're going to export default info. We're going to do the same thing with tags. And I'm just going to copy this and paste it in tags. Change this to tags. This to tags, and we should be good. And then in the results, we already have that. So great, let's save this. Let's see, tags and info is not defined. Of course, we need to import them. Import tags from, and I think metrics / tags, and let's copy that, and info. So let's save it, compiled successfully. Now if we go to our page, we see we now have the tags component in the info component. All right, so for tags, we actually have an array of tags. We want to display these on the page. So let's pass in props. And let's do this. Var tags equals props.tags.map. So we're going to map this function. Let's put tag li and brackets. And we're going to return li dash tag. All right, let's see how that goes. And of course, we're going to want to set up the HTML down here to display the correct thing. So first off, let's change these classes to class name. And let's remove this here because we're going to put in some different stuff. So let's put a div with the class name. And in this, we're going to do a padding X of 6 and a padding Y of 4. Close that up. And inside of this, we're going to do another div with the class name equals font bold. We're going to do text XL and a margin bottom of 2. And we're going to just put tags here. And under that, we're going to display the tags. So we need to do an unordered list with the class name of text gray 700 and text base. And here, we're going to dynamically output the tags. So if you see, we have an unordered list here, and we're going to pass in the tags, which up here is going to be the LI, the list items for the unordered list. Hopefully that makes sense. And let's save that. And now, if we go, whoop, cannot read property map of undefined. So let's go back and look. All right, so let's take a look up here, see what's going on. Well, first thing, we don't need a LI here. That's I for index. All right, everything here looks good. So let's go back to results. And that's the problem. You see, we have body here. So we need to take all this. So we're sending all of this to the results component, but we're stopping here. We're not sending anything onwards to the next component, to the next child. So we have this grandparent, and we got to get it to the child. So we also need to add it here to pass on that state to the next component, the next child component. So I'm going to put it here in tags. I'm going to remove the title because I think I want that to come up in info instead. And so tags equals this.state.tags. Now let me save that and see what happens. And we still have an error. Cannot read property tags of null. Let's see what's going on. So let's start out in our results, or body. Let's start in body. We have tags equals this.state.tags, good. We get to results and we have tags equal, we need to have this.props. This is not state, this is props being passed on. That's the issue. Now if we save, it should clear up. Yeah, there we go. So now if we enter the video ID and make the call, all right, so in results, we do have tags and title available. If we go down to tags, we do have our tags as a list. And those are displaying on the page. So great. Success. Now we have tags from any video we want. Let's try another video. How about video gear under 20 bucks? Wow. Let's grab the video ID of this.
Like very outgoing, compassionate.
And let's go back to our app. Let's pop this in and we should get our tags for this one. Bam. Look at the tags they used. So you can't get this elsewhere. This is what makes this app neat. You can get the tags for any video out there. Now this looks kind of dull. We kind of lost our square here. So let's go back and add in some CSS to make that look a little bit better. So let's go to tags.js. Up here, we're going to put rounded. We'll put overflow hidden and shadow LG with 1W. And let's save that. That should give us a little clarity. And there we go. So we have a shadow around the box now. It's a little bit rounded. We could probably do with some padding where the tags are at. So let's do like a P4. Let's try that out. Yeah, looks good. I mean, we can tweak that, however, in the future, but right now, that's great. It's displaying all of our tags. Now let's get our info set up over here. So we have our info component, and let's do this. Let's get rid of this. Actually, let's just go back to tags and just copy this and paste that here. So we have the rounded and the shadow. Everything is kind of matching. We have the padding X, padding Y. Let's get rid of this one and let's put info here. So info, and let's do a div. Let's put a strong tag in there. Let's put channel title. And after strong, let's put a span with the class name of text gray 700 and text base. And here in the span, we're going to put props. Oh my goodness, autofill is crazy sometimes. Props.channel title. And let's put props in here. And what else are we going to get? Let's go back to body real quick. So we don't have channel title even set up yet. And so we want a channel title, and that's going to be channel titles available like everything else. So let's just make a copy of that. Channel title. Change this to channel title. And finally, we want the views. Now, how do we get the views? Like how many total views the video has? Well, if we go back to our YouTube API and come down here, there is available something called statistics. And with statistics, you can get the views. I'll just save you the time. So we need to go response.data.items, first in the array, .statistics.views. That'll give us our views. And we need to send all this stuff on. So let's do channel title. So we got the video title. Let's do channel title because this state channel title and views is this .state.views. And that's all being sent to results. So let me just copy this. Now that's sent to results, so we're here at this point, and we want these to go into info. So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to get rid of tags. And then state needs to be updated to props. So we'll update those three to props. Now we're sending it on to info. Here we now have props.channelTitle. So that should be good. We're going to take this and just copy it twice. So we have channel title. We're going to have video title. And views. Props.title. And props.views. Save that. Now let's give this a shot. Hopefully everything works. Let's find another channel ID and hit enter. Ooh, cannot read property views of undefined. And actually that is because it's not statistics.views, it's statistics.viewCount. And that's in the documentation. I was just trying to save you time. But yeah, statistics.viewCount. Now let's give it a shot. And by the way, look at this info, and we have our three options here. These should fill in once we make the API call. And unhandled rejection. This is so funny. This is how it goes when you build apps. You try stuff and you just get these errors. So this is real time. This is good that we're getting errors, but cannot read property view count of undefined. Now, probably, so we have views defined up here. It probably goes back to our YouTube.js, and we don't have statistics here. So we need to have snippet and also statistics. So we don't have that as our part. We can put statistics all day in the response, but if we don't send it in the request, then it's no good. So we added statistics here. Let's save it now. Give it another shot. Hit this and hit enter. And there we go. Things are working now. So here's all of our tags. And here is our channel title is Think Media. That's the name of the channel. Video title is Best Cheap Smartphone Accessories. And the views are 335,000 plus views. All right, so my initial thought with this was to have like 8 to 10 boxes with all kind of info. And you can continue building on it. Just take this YouTube API and just play around with it. Go to video categories, thumbnails, subscriptions, all kind of stuff, channels, captions. You can do tons of stuff with it, and you can really build this out to be a neat app. But right now, we have a fully functional app. We can go to YouTube to any video, and I think this is really good if you're really a YouTube user. And let's see, let's do what's in my camera bag 2020. Grab the ID of this video. You can do this with any video. There's no other place you can see what tags they're using. But the way I'm benefiting from this is when I create a YouTube video, I can look at other videos like it and say, hey, this video is doing good, man. They have 55,000 views in just, a couple days. What tags are they using? I can come over here. I can open up my app. It's just local. It's for my own purpose. I can open up my app and I could come up here and just paste in the ID. And here's all of the tags. So I'm going to say, hey, he's using these tags. It doesn't mean I should copy it, but it gives me some ideas as to what I can use as well. So that's your full React app. Hopefully that was a lot of fun. It was real time, meaning we had a lot of mistakes, but we fixed them. We kept building and we have this small app. And I think in 2020 and beyond, small specific apps are going to be more and more popular at work. In bigger projects, people are going to need smaller tasks done, and you're going to probably have to build out small things like this. And this gives you good interaction with an API. It gives you interaction with the YouTube API specifically, and it's in React, which is always a lot of fun. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and be on the lookout next week for another Build Apps tutorial.